France 24 Sanam Shantyaei joins me on the set. Sanam, as we just heard, French President Emmanuel Macron pledging millions of vaccines and a total of 1 billion by next year.
Absolutely, Wasim. Earlier we were speaking and I said there's a reason that this has been dubbed the vaccine summit. We are, of course, still in the middle of a pandemic. So 1 billion doses, as you mentioned, pledged to poorer countries, certainly those are in the developing world. They've also been discussing in detail how to prevent another pandemic. And with that comes this questioning of the World Health Organization by France's President Emmanuel Macron earlier, who said that we want to reform the body. We know, of course, it has been in the firing line for its dealing with the pandemic. Now, I would suppose one of the more contentious issues would be that of China, which, according to some sources that I spoke to earlier, came up against a few disagreements. Firstly, there was the issue of human rights. Something like that is naturally less divisive and polarizing among the different G7 members. The removal even of forced labor, again, that's something that was dealt with. But what we know is that China's growing hold on the international community is something that's of great concern to the United States. And so Joe Biden came into that summit wanting to rally behind him other Western nations, the allies of the United States, to scale back their commitments and the investment deals that they have going with Beijing. And so the G7 leaders decided to adopt what they call this rival plan to China's Belt and Road Initiative, which has seen money essentially lent for projects across different continents, from Africa to Asia to Latin America, even parts of Europe. 100 or so countries have signed up to this, Wasim. And so this is something that we know Beijing has time and time again, especially by the Americans, been criticized for, because it's leaving these developing countries in unmanageable debt, we could say. And of course, France, for its part, will remember this only several weeks before Joe Biden's inauguration was at the helm of this campaign to push the European Union towards making more investment deals with the Chinese. So that's where the bone of contention comes from. I do want to also talk about climate change. This is another one of the central topics. But before I do, let's take a listen to the U.S. President Joe Biden speaking on that earlier.
We had a president who basically said it's not a problem, global warming. It is the existential problem facing humanity, and it's being treated that way. So we're going to provide up to $2 billion to support developing countries as they transition away from unabated coal-fired power.
There you go. Earlier, I mentioned the vaccine summit. Another slogan that these guys have managed to come up together with is a turning year when it comes to climate change for 2021. So they've pledged to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050, Wasim. But, and this is something I mentioned earlier, many environmentalists are saying it's not enough. This is a case of too little, too late. In addition to that, they've announced new green financing plans to help poor countries reduce carbon emissions. What I do want to say to wrap this up is, I think what really stood out to us, those of us who have been covering this story for a number of years, especially under the Donald Trump administration, was the one message that was made rather loud and clear by the different leaders that took to the stage. Some of them we took live on France 24. Boris Johnson, who was hosting the event, Emmanuel Macron, the French president, and of course Joe Biden himself, was that this is a collaborative event. This is something that comes together as a result of solidarity and multilateralism, something that we didn't have under the Donald Trump administration.